just going to another question here, and I think Ms. Koch, you spoke to this, but I want to ask of UNHCR this question of resettlement and resettlement into the United States, for example. I think in your testimony, Ms. Koch, you indicated that post 9/11 that there has been some more difficulty in resettlement here in the United States. Is it your view that that is still true, and are there things that we might do here in the United States that enabled resettlement, particularly of families and unification of families here in this country?
Certainly. That's one of the category of resettlement processing to the U.S. that is called the P3 category, Family Reunion Program, that have been put on hold after 9/11 for many categories of refugee. There are discussions currently taking place between us on the PRM as to the reopening of some of those categories. I think I'm reasonably optimistic that it will work. However, in relation to groups like Sudanese refugee, the tendency has been over the last couple of years for people in Department of Homeland Security, but also that applies to similar administration in other resettlement countries, to view the Sudanese refugees as not being in need of international protection where they are. And the view is that those people should return to South Sudan. So unfortunately, there has not been much enthusiasm on generosity in relation to resettlement of people from South Sudan. Because
is it your view that there is a security situation that appropriately enables people to be resettled to South Sudan?
I think we have to look on a case-by-case basis. I think I'm cautiously optimistic. I believe that for many Sudanese refugees, the solution might be in South Sudan, might be going back home. And that's what many of them want. But they want it under appropriate condition of peace, security, and services being available in areas of return. This is not the case today. In addition, you've heard it from our two friends today. I mean, some people have experienced such a level of trauma. Is that reasonable to think that those people should return to the areas where they have witnessed human rights violation, where they have witnessed their family members being killed? I don't think personally that's very reasonable. I think we should be a bit more generous.
Thank you. And then I do have another question, and Thoan, thank you very much for being here, and look forward to our continued relationship in our office. But you also, in your testimony, you spoke to the direct needs of survivors, and some of those needs go to medical, family, training, and psychological and other services as well. In your view, how is that happening? And where is it that the international community could actually step up?
Thank you, my Congress. It's a very loaded question, so I don't know how to approach it. But this is what I believe. When I first came to this country, I came with a plastic bag, and one that make a big difference, especially with the refugees, is the foundation. And the foundation that was laid out for me was really actually what set me up for success. So back in refugees camp, where most refugees are, is you find people that have been in refugee camp for several years, just like example of my sister. And these people, when you talk to them, they have no hope. You know, you talk to them, they have no intention of going back home. And like the president have mentioned earlier, it's case by case. There are some widows who don't have anybody in South Sudan. And in South Sudan, right now in Juba, is one of the most expensive places. If you don't have a job and you don't have work or you don't have any relative, you know, there's no way you can really make it in South Sudan. So, and they are faced by massive responsibilities, you know. So we don't blame the government. But when you see each individual, you know, these cases, it's very, very hard for them to cope in South Sudan, especially with lack of medical, with lack of social services, with lack of, you know, individual support. So that's why a lot of them choose to be in a refugee camp, because although there is insufficient of almost everything in a refugee camp, but they find somehow that someone look, out for their interests. So that's one of the areas, especially the services, the healthcare and all of that. That's one of the critical challenges I know.
Thank you very much. And then lastly, I want to go back to this question of the displaced persons in Abyei, because it sounds at least from the testimony of UNHCR that there might be that there still seems to be some fighting that is ongoing and some violence that's ongoing. So is it really to be expected that many displaced persons would have returned to those areas?
The chief of the territory of Abyei is talking about plans to bring back 30,000 people from one of the 9 Dinka sub-tribes to this territory before referendum. The question is, and he says, other people who were formerly living in the territory of Abyei can also go back. This is a reference to some Arab tribesmen who were living there. Now the question is, as my friend Michel Gabaudin mentioned, the Masalit tribe, the leaders of the Masalit tribes want all of them to return, including some people who had no previous residence in that territory. So there's going to be lots of complication when it gets to voter registration in this territory.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Kobana.
Just to add, if you allow me, this tribe traditionally spent part of the year on the territory of Abyei because they're nomadic and they brought their pasture, their cows and cattle to pasture. So I think, of course, they are the logical thing. They are reasonably worried that if there is independence and a border, will they be able to do it, and therefore will they lose their capacity to survive as they have traditionally done. So that's, I would say, is the rational argument. The irrational one is that they are pushed to go and vote, hopefully to change the decision that would be taken in Abyei, and it accepts to stay with the North, rather than to try to come to this discussion, how do we safeguard some of the traditions in this area in a slightly different context. So the dialogue is being pushed towards confrontation rather than to try to find solution. But there are real issues at the bottom. That's what I want to say.
Thank you very much. I don't have any further questions, and with that, I'd like to thank all of our witnesses. I think that you continue to shed light for those of us on the Commission and leave more than just food for thought, but room for action. And so we really appreciate that. And with that, the hearing is closed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really a pleasure to see you.